We owe all of our thanks to all of you who have been responding to our emails, taking the surveys, giving us your honest feedback, letting us read through all your comments, helping to develop this curriculum. Next week, we dive into closing the gap on Wednesday, and the goal of every class is to leave you with templates. So I'm going to give you a little drive through. Here's the Teams folder. So this is our, what we call the schoolhouse right here. The was made by Boise for us for this class. Within it is your folder here, the general folder. And within the general folder, for example, like yesterday, if I click on the notes, these are all the notes that people left in the chat. The cool thing is the stream for the meeting is also located here automatically. This is the PIO toolbox you hear a lot about with Chris Erickson and national best practices. There's a general folder that has all sorts of files. And remember, when you click on a folder in Teams, it kind of deceives you at first. You're expecting to see files and folders. You actually have to go to files. And then inside of there, look at all this. There's just endless, ready to go help, rental vehicles, social media, and then the new stuff, which is really neat. People are really helping each other out right now. Here's the Zoom tips and tricks. Michelle Fiddler just put up some key cheat sheets a couple days ago. I've got the visual guide to Cisco in there because it fit, and I couldn't make another folder in here. COVID best practices. There's going to be files in here. Each geographic area. This is the one Chris Erickson keeps talking about, that we can all upload our best practices from different areas, again, in the COVID folder. So we're giving you a bit of a walkthrough of the world we live in, because not all of us, and some of us haven't spent much time here at all. And that's nothing to kick yourself over. Just understand that these are the ways to get in. These are how to see things. Our team has a folder. These are other groups that I've been working in this year. So you start to collect a little bit. You can delete them, you can move them around, what have you, but we wanted to give you a walk through what we call the schoolhouse. So we all have a deep desire to connect with the communities that we serve. So we know the stress level is high, right? The stress level is high for a lot of reasons. I love this quote from the survey. FireNet itself is stressful. I'll give you that. And the unknown streaming apps, right? They will be challenging. And we're not going to reach everybody in the traditional ways that we have. Okay, agenda for today. Folks, we just, what success looks like for us is, again, we are trying to maximize our capacity with the limited staff we have to minimize our risk and reach a certain amount of people. With these tools here, we're going to reach about 70%. So we're not shooting for 100% reach on these kind of tools. We're going to shoot for 70. We're going to reach folks in different ways, and we're going to also throughout the season and in fact every day help each other learn. I could overwhelm you today easily. These are enormous topics. There are principles that I'm going to give you to be successful in tackling any one of these. But as you can tell, the cheat sheets are being made on the fires. They're being shared in those folders I just showed you. And we really want you to get a chance to know where those are, get them in your world, and work with them so you feel that stress level go down. If nothing else happens in this class, I want you to walk away with these principles for tackling the virtual world of social media and virtual public meetings and virtual telebriefs and everything else. You got to try. You got to do and then get good at something, whether it's supporting somebody who's better than you at it by being their tech person, whether it's being the one to step up and get a little extra piece of gear or a better microphone. You got to try. I've seen a lot of folks do that over the years, and as they do it, it empowers them. They go to the next skill. When you're in doubt, just break it down. We can't do everything this year. There's going to be times when you can't just be a hero. You got to break it down to what you can do, break down the problem into something simpler and tackle it. You have to invest in a little basic good gear. If you're in this class, you're here because you have passion. You're here because you care. But that means you got to put some dollar signs with it. At the very end of this, I'm going to show you 3 slides that show very economical gear and then the next level of gear to invest up to. But you're going to have to invest a little. It is hard work. It is stressful. I can't tell you how many times before a public meeting, we felt like, oh my gosh, we never want to do this again. But then we climbed the mountain together. Mountain climbing isn't easy, but the view from the top is amazing, right? Mountain climbing is not easy. I live at the base of Denali. I got stuck at 19,000 feet. It's not fun. It's not easy, but the top is, and we're going to climb that mountain. We use that principle all throughout the year. And then we're going to maximize capacity and we're going to minimize our risk. Our survey results, again, 84 of you contributing to that. Thank you so much. Generally speaking, the public affairs officers have been super busy all across the board. And I love that quote, swamped in COVID. That doesn't mean that now the public affairs officers are experts in all these virtual platforms. Okay, so all the PIOs out there who are hoping that during the COVID era, the PIOs got really good at all this because everybody's using it. That's not the case. They have so many other responsibilities for closures and messaging and all the phases of opening that the public affairs officers have expressed they're being swamped. From the PIOs, we know there's a lot of worry because I've been worried, you've been worried, we've all been worried. We live with that worry. Are we going to have connectivity? Are we going to be able to understand these platforms? There's still a lot I don't know about these platforms. And then everybody's new to FireNet. It's a different FireNet than last year. And what a tough year to have a whole new thing. From the AD, EFF perspective, we've heard a lot of, okay, I felt slightly left out, or I've been involved in a lot of unpaid conversations. So it'd be nice to get on the same page as everybody else. That's what this is all about, is everybody coming together and getting our common tools. So these links are for you. This PowerPoint will be ready for you afterwards to download. And Chris and Sarah are dropping these links in the chat for those of you who have chat. Just the other day, again, the Zoom to Facebook tips and tricks went up. Customizable PNW virtual guide to this Appendix E is basically lots of things in once for you. It's a comm strat, it's a equity, diversion, inclusion strategy, it's low tech, high tech. So you definitely want Appendix E. That's what Pam Sichting and Ada Takis and Noel Livingston's team worked on for the Pacific Northwest Coordination Group. And then again, Michelle Fiddler's best practice guide I included in the email blast this morning, because all of us should be relying on that kind of great work. It's full color. It's really well done for visual learners. If you haven't had a chance to read through it, absolutely include it in your toolkit. And then there's new cheat sheets. Garrett, are you on today? Because just about an hour before we started, our OSFM Lake Oswego Fire Marshal Garrett emailed me 2 brand new cheat sheets that the marshals are using. And for those of you who have not worked with Garrett and the Oregon State Fire Marshals, they do the structure protection element in Oregon under the governor's office direction. They work in unified command. So we had a lot of chances to work with them in 2018. They've been contributing to all the best practices, all these conversations. And here's Garrett sharing, really importantly, two docs that can help all of us learn GoToWebinar and YouTube. The social media group on Facebook is fantastic. It runs all throughout the year. I think right now it has 600 people in it. If you're a non-Facebooker, you might create a dummy account just to get in there and get your toolbox staffed up with all sorts of how-tos and lessons learned and suggestions. And those are nice because they're at all ability levels. And then the NIFC, this link here, I call it a treasure chest, because when you look at this page, and if you actually took the time to read every link on there, first of all, it'd take you weeks. There's that much information. So again, this class isn't where I can go in and say, okay, here's the crux in Zoom. I am going to give you some cruxes in Facebook at the end, though. I do want you to be able to do the Facebook setup, manage an incident page by clicking live and closing. So I am going to have 5 prizes at the end of this presentation. I'll give you the criteria for winning your prize. You can do your homework tonight or whenever you have time. And the first 5 people to send me the proof that they did it, I will mail them from Amazon a brand new, where's my, one of these. It's my smartphone adapter holder. In fact, the new ones are even nicer than this. I don't leave home without 2 of these. It changes everything. So you will get some tools and tricks. You won't get a 4-day class in an hour and a half, but you will get a lot of these cheat sheets to work on. Wildland Fire Response Plan put out a really good message on the conducting the virtual public meetings by using whatever technology, so it's in our court, but ensuring the feedback loop. We have to make sure in some way that when we're doing these meetings that we're getting that public interaction. The popular ones, of course, have been YouTube and Facebook and Zoom and GoToMeeting. On Fire, it's mainly been Facebook Live. Facebook Live has the built-in capacity to do the feedback loop by monitoring questions. Bummer is a lot of folks in rural area, I wouldn't say a lot, but a segment definitely don't ever use it. And then in certain areas, including the Southeast, when we went to 2016, everybody, all the churches and everybody's using it. So we have relied on that pretty heavily. But then with COVID, all of a sudden you're seeing all your news interviews. You're seeing Cisco WebEx on CNN interviews. You're seeing that Microsoft Teams and Teams Live is available. We haven't used that yet. Adobe Connect, webinar platforms, of course, Periscope in the old days. So this is like a paramedic's nightmare, right? A paramedic wants to have 3 or 4 differential diagnosis for how to treat a patient and then narrow it down to 2 or 1 and go. This is like 9 or 10 choices. And in studying how people make decisions, we don't make decisions well when we have too many choices. It becomes overwhelming. So I'm going to speak to that. This is overwhelming. This is too many platforms. You can't be great at all of them. And so we're going to deal with some of those issues in this class. I do want to show you what's been going on in this world of public information recently. So here's Tuesday, the Bighorn Fire, the Southwest team, Bree Petit and her crew, they use, and these are screenshots right from Tuesday Facebook page. There's the link for you. You can go watch it yourself. They did a Zoom to Facebook. Again, that cheat sheet link you've already been presented with. You've seen Michelle Fiddler do that. So they linked the 2 accounts together. They had a tech crew working on the Zoom. They had a tech crew working on Facebook. It involved a lot of people. I think it surprised them how much actual hands-on support it took. When you do start doing these new things to you, breaking it down, it's going to take some people. It's not just going to be the 1.5 person who's at ICP and the 1.5 who's in the hotel. You do need to understand from the lessons learned of this year that when you're zooming to Facebook and things like that, to do it right, especially until we're good at it, it's going to take some people. Okay, here's the Sawtooth Fire. This year, there's Brad Patassi on Looker's left and the American Sign Language Arizona requirement person on the right. So remember Arizona's state law that all incident management teams at all briefings, whether they are attended by the public or not, so that includes ops videos, that includes PIO updates, need to have ASL. They have special carded PIOs who are available for anywhere up to the assignment, but typically for a day or 2. They come out of the state resource ordering system. They show up to the fire camp, perform the services, do things in the unit, and then when they're no longer needed, they go back to their jobs of being interpreters and CART for their normal day job. I've been able to work with them quite a bit. They do have some editing skills. And they do have some captioning skills. So depending on who they are, if they're in your unit or you're in that area, because folks are starting to support Region 3 from Oregon, Washington. Katie O'Hara is going to be doing branch for Michelle Fiddler down there in one of her sections of the fire, and other folks from here are going to be helping. So incorporating that is a legal law. It has to be on the screen. That's a split screen Zoom that they then link to their Facebook account, and automatically Zoom put this on Facebook for them, but it didn't automatically monitor the comments and things like that. So you can tell they've had 31 shares and 3,500 views. It's just a few days ago. So they were busy monitoring that Zoom to Facebook. There's the link for you to be able to watch it later. When they're doing their ops update, which is another way of feeding the media and everybody else, it's something they can embed in a blog or use as part of their package. They did not do a live. They used one camera, a cell phone camera probably, to do the ops, who has his mask worn backwards, but at least he has it on. And then they did another camera to film the interpreter. Then an editor embedded using a software, the one screen into the other. They rendered it, and then they uploaded it to Facebook, YouTube, or wherever else it went. So that is a not live example. And I think that's really important for everybody to understand. Not everything has to be live to effectively communicate information. You can take a lot of deep breaths and take some takes and film it. Just film it. And if it doesn't go well, film it. And if it doesn't go well, film it. And then edit it and take your time and then get it up. And that process will get faster as you work through those jitters and those type of who's who in the zoo, who's got the skills, who's got the extra tripod, who has this, who has that. Once you put all that together, it doesn't always have to be live, and that takes some of that pressure off. It develops a nice system. Here's the Spokane, Washington COVID JIC that Liv Stecker stood up back in March. I remember getting a call from her like, hey, I'm down here on day one. I'm standing up this JIC. Oh my gosh. And she got everybody to use Facebook Live from day one, everybody being that banner you can see there, the Inland Strong. That's all the community agency folks in Spokane bonding together, creating their own backdrop for Liv's initiation of this Facebook Live. They did it every day during the heart and core of the lockdown and COVID. This is a very, very simple technique. This is the gear at the end of this presentation that I'm going to show you that you should have. Will get this done. You don't need much to get this done. What you need is the buy-in from the different folks. And that is what Liv used her leader's intent and some command presence to get some folks to buy in. At first, they were all nervous. What if we say something wrong? What if this agency says something wrong? Well, guess what? The community feedback and the engagement, ensuring that closed loop cycle that people are able to comment and share, all of a sudden, all those agencies realize, whoa, these are our constituents and they are on here and we need to be here with them. We're just talking about Cisco WebEx here at the Washington Joint Information Center, Emergency Operations Center. So as you can see in the picture, you have Corey Portner. He's texting the presenters to make sure they're ready. Jamie Smith is also texting presenters. And then Chris Friedman Oberdon in the corner taking notes, making sure that the presentation is going well. I have the two computers set up to the left. And in the WebEx guide that you can download from SharePoint, you'll see one of the best practices is if you're going to have reporters call in and do the preload the question theory, which is how the JIC did it in Washington. They'd have the reporters write in an email that also verified and vetted that they were in fact a news agency. And then during the precious half-an-hour Q&A on the actual telebriefing itself, they got the ability to kind of have this intel ready, and we could just have our list of reporters that we knew we were going to call on. We could check and make sure they're in the room and go from there. Again, the cheat sheet for WebEx is very detailed, is very photoshopped because it's not very commonly used. But if you do need to use it, the muting, unmuting, panelists, all the different things you need to do to manage the participants is covered in the 30-page WebEx cheat sheet guide. Any other cheat sheets are generally uploaded to the NIFC PIO social media treasure chest. Both those are linked in the PowerPoint. Okay, let's go into some questions here.
I'm Marlita Reddy-Yelmfelt, and I am the lead of PNW VOST, as well as an AD technical specialist for the Forest Service. And what I do for the Forest Service is essentially VOST as a single resource. So I've been asked to come in and talk about the directive in the WFRP to use VOST as support on large incidents. So in case you don't know what VOST is, to start with, VOST stands for Virtual Operations Support Team. And our original mission when we started with PNW2 was to monitor, curate, and amplify social media messages. And when VOST first started, we actually did all of the social media because agencies weren't allowed to do it. This was back in 2011. And so our team actually would set up the Facebook page and Twitter and a blog in case InstaWeb went down, which it often did back then if it got to PL 4 or 5. So we would just reproduce the blog, and the PIOs would tell us what to post, and we would do all the mechanics for that. Now, since agencies are able to get on social media, what the PIO team does on a large incident is do the outgoing social media themselves. But what they concentrate on is the internal social media. So your accounts. And there isn't really time to dedicate a person to monitoring external social media and the press and all the PIO mentions. So that part is my job as a technical specialist. A really good VOST, the value that we bring to the table is that we're able to look at all of those things and analyze them and summarize what's going on. And I actually come in ahead of the in-brief and give intel to the PIOs before they get to the in-brief. So what's going on in the community? What do the stakeholders care about? What do the residents care about? And they have that in hand before they go and have to deal with anybody on incident. So it's not really just monitoring and collecting it. It's putting it into some format so the PIOs know what's going on the ground. So next slide, please.
Okay, and did that slide come through for you? The full meal deal?
Nope.
Okay, it must be transmitting through the, so the full meal deal is up and showing, but it's not on your computer yet.
Okay, because I can't see it, so I can't speak to it. There we go. It's a good thing you can cut all this out. Okay, so.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't want people to get too intimidated by all the VOST does and what you've heard about what we do for PNW2. Kale is calling this, I'm going to blame it on Kale, the full meal deal VOST. And what that means is, we actually only do, our particular VOST only does type 1 incidents for the most part. It's not that we can't do type 2 incidents. There are all hazards things where residents are affected. And there's a lot of social media. But generally in wildland fire for the type 1s, there are a lot of incidents that are smaller, that don't have that volume on a wildland fire incident. So we do a lot of stuff for PNW2 that you may be able to do with one person on an incident of less complexity. So what we do on a type 1 incident is we provide intel to the incoming PIO leads, and I just talked about that. We survey everything going on before they get there, and we compile that into what I call a VOST coordination summary, or VCS. And you may have heard the term social listening report. It's basically the same thing. So we just compile everything we found and categorize it and give that to the PIOs. We also create a resource directory, which if you're a PAO and sometimes a PIO, you can think of as your contacts list. We take that a step further, though. So we collect all the media, whether it's TV, radio, newspapers, and blogs. We also collect up agency information, cooperating agencies, and also community groups that may be talking about the fire. And we provide an email address, a snail mail address, a phone number, and all the different social media accounts that they have. That's going to come in really useful if say, people are talking about things on social media, but they're not using the keywords that we're looking for. We can actually go through the list of social media accounts and monitor that way. So once we've created that resource directory, and sometimes there's no time because it's really busy, so that kind of gets done along the way, the resource directory. But we come in and we monitor external social media, so things that aren't showing up on your page or your Twitter account, so that we can tell you what's going on that you can't directly respond to. So what's the sentiment that people are expressing that they may not tell you directly? We also look at the press. We look at all the comment threads for press articles. And also we look at the comment threads for everything. And this can be a big job. For instance, on one of the fires I worked a couple of years ago, there was a political official in another state who posted to Facebook, "Oh, the fire is burned over the town." Well, it didn't burn over the town. It wasn't even close to that. But he got 10,000 shares on that particular post. And the VOST job, unfortunately, I was working alone. So my job was to look at all the comments on his post, all the 10,000 shares, whatever was public of that, look at all those comments. And if people shared beyond that, keep going down the line to look at what people were saying about that. Did they believe it? What were they saying when they shared it? Again, it's only public posts. We don't look at anything that's private, even of our friends. So we collect all that up and then we report that back. That can be really time consuming for a regular PIO shop. So once we've collected that, we consolidate it and we report on analytics. How far is the hashtag for your fire going? What's getting the most engagement, etc. So next slide, please.
Might take a second.
That's okay.
You're doing great. And I'll cut this just for you also, so you actually have your own, I'll do a separate one that's just this for you, so you can use this as part of your business card.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we're on the next slide. Okay, so as I said, don't get intimidated by this full meal deal package because it's not necessarily appropriate for every incident. It can be appropriate for a type 2 incident if you're closer to a town, or maybe it's not a wildfire and it's something else like a flood or something that you have a lot of social media traffic for. That's really the issue, is there's a lot of social media and press traffic and you don't have the capacity to monitor it all yourself. That's when you call in a VOST. You don't have to be a PIO to do this job, although sometimes I prefer to have not a PIO do it, just because when you're a PIO, you have some preformed conceptions of what's important and what's not. And it's really the lead PIO's needs that are important. So you're going to want to, if you are a PIO, kind of hold back on your judgment and include things that you might not think are important. The big takeaway from that is have a good relationship with the lead PIOs, because this is a big picture job, and having that good relationship gives you a better understanding of what to collect. So on the flip side of that, a PIO can do it. It kind of needs to be a virtual job. So this new notion of a virtual PIO fits in really well with this job. But it needs to be a job dedicated to this task. At least for, I would say, the first 5 days of a type 1 incident. I'm just finishing up working on on the bushfire, and before that I did Sawtooth, and it really takes a ramp up, and then after that there's time as the social media decreases to put a virtual PIO on some other task. I think the future of this really is a THSP or PIO job that can be ordered, and that's kind of the big difference between using a single resource and a VOST. When we started the VOST, we were all volunteers. Now the volunteer part of my job we've got a core team out of the original 25 who actually assist. But volunteers have full-time jobs or full-time home care issues and can't give you that full-time monitoring. So people will come in for 2 hours, 3 hours. Sometimes on weekends they'll put in longer. But to get that big picture that I've been talking about, it really takes somebody looking at it all the time and interacting with the PIOs to understand what things are coming into the incident. For instance, a new start somewhere. The VOST volunteers may not get that information, whereas if you're agency, you're in teams and interacting with the rest of the PIO shop, and you get that intel faster. So next slide, please. So who does the VOST work? I've kind of talked about that already. The issue that remains right now is, how are we going to allocate people to this job? Right now, I am the only THSP doing this, and I work with Southwest 1 and PNW 2, and that's a full-time job. So what we need to do, I think, is train up agency people or ex-agency people if there are people who retired or ADs who need an assignment. I think it's completely feasible to train either retired PIOs or other technical specialists who might not be in the PIO world. For instance, I would feel pretty comfortable training any webmaster who works a type 1 incident. So it's something that we need to look at, and I think this is going to be the way things work. As I was one of the test models for VOST, I think I am now the test model for the THSP position for virtual PIO support. And we'll see how this goes through this season. I've got 2 down and waiting for PNW 2 to start. So thank you. You can contact me at the information on the slide. I'm the Red Elm most places on social media, and it's mar@theredelm.com for emailing me. And feel free to get in touch with me with any questions.
Great, Mar, thanks. We do have a question from the audience, and some folks know that you have been down with Michelle Fiddler about the Sawtooth and the bushfire, and just wanted to get an idea of, with the population area in Phoenix and the challenges the bushfire had, some of the ways in which you were able to support the crew, rather large crew of virtual and on-site PIOs.
Well, honestly, it's hard to remember Sawtooth now that I've been on bushfire for 8 days. But let's talk about bushfire because that's easier and it's fresh in my mind. On the bushfire, it's been an interesting run because we had a lot of people who had not, we were the first ones to do a large scale fire in Teams, and Teams is a big challenge. So one thing I could bring to the table with this very large PIO shop was being able to find my way around Teams and help people with that. Even not as an administrator, I had the experience in knowing what they needed to ask for to get their issues resolved. Also, for me, virtual work is not it's not a new thing. I had a job for 15 years in the corporate world, working virtually from New Mexico to Michigan, and then doing the VOST alongside of that job, and then full time. So I can recognize when people are having problems working virtually. I can help with coping strategies. Either, those stress things that come with trying to work in a virtual environment, just emotionally, taking care of yourself, but also dealing with new technologies. And I think that the VOST will be very helpful with people who need a leg up and aren't really feeling comfortable, but have to do it because this is their job, to be on a team, but be virtual.
Great, thanks, Mar. And I see one more question out there for some of those folks, again, who might be on the type 2 team who are wondering, do they talk to their public affairs officer to kind of get the concern level to see if they need to contact you and get advice about tracking some of those rumors, especially as the season gets more politicized, if that becomes a bigger concern for type 2 leads?
I can, if you're talking about me personally and where I can help, I can give advice on how to track rumors, etc. And it doesn't matter to me whether it's a PIO or a PAO. If it's an incident, I think I'm probably booked up with the type 1 teams, but if you would like to order me for a training or something like that, if that's the question, I am orderable through Region 3, Forest Service Region 3.
Great, so folks can get in touch with you. I mean, I know just from the years of working with you, there's not many folks who have bridged from the volunteer VOST world, which stretches worldwide, there's organizations all over the world, right, into fire and into now technical specialist and working with type 1 teams and even working on your own task book for PIO. So right, you are a unique asset. A lot of folks might think it's just a type 1 thing. And I think giving the context for people who are listening that the type 1 incidents typically have higher stakes all the way around, lots more assets at risk, and the potential for congressional and other VIP type interests at the highest levels of the nation, meaning that everybody's on more edge to make sure that rumors don't get out of control, that people who want to get attention don't steal the stage by sharing false posts, like you mentioned earlier on, that get 10,000 shares about a town burning down, which can have cascading effects, right? And the wildfire response plan points to the virtual operations support team as a key asset because of all of the value you bring. And I know I've seen it, and I just shadowed you in Southwest, and I know what value you brought to the. Thanks for being there for us over the years and for helping folks enter into this new age of what the VOST really is.
Well, thank you for having me.
You bet.
This just a cover slide from one of our updates there. And I know one of the common questions is, is it very hard to get involved in doing the work of the social media public information officer? And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a minute, and we'll go here, and we will go into, okay. So actually, we will go back to sharing. Great, and play right there. Okay, so we got to the Q&A. There's the VOST. Actually, no. Okay, yep. Questions? So the public affairs officer and public information officer work together to narrow the virtual platform choices. That just makes sense. The rapid assessment includes looking at the Joint Information Center in your area, what the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, might have been using, talking to the Department of Health information officers on how they've been communicating and running their virtual meetings and updates, how they've been incorporating American Sign Language or CART captioning, talking to the Sheriff's Office, and then your partnering agencies in the area. You can also definitely check with those worship centers, churches, local faith centers, elected officials, and then those stakeholders. So river rafting guides, pack guides, horse and mule, rancher type tour companies. They've already been communicating because their bottom line, their tourist dollars are being impacted, and you want to make sure that you're able to connect with them. Okay, so there is a downloadable from the SharePoint conference solution comparison that Chris Barr's folks in Region 1 made. It covers about 4 or 5 of our platforms. You can look at it if you're a spreadsheet type person and you're trying to get an idea of size, scalability. Also in our best management practices for the Pacific Northwest, there is a large scale community meeting after action review. Liv Stecker and the crew out in Spokane had hired a company to help assist them with a very large public meeting, and that is accounted for in that plan. So most of the best practices for community meetings have already been covered in the world of 2020 COVID planning. Michelle Fiddler has an excellent Southwest IMT guide, full color, full page. These are the best community meeting practices right from there. It does take more help than you think. This is Bree this year out on assignment, and she reported out on the national call that it takes more hands-on folks than you think to set up the cameras, do the support work of lighting and sound, and making sure that all the speakers are spaced and available, making sure that you're facilitating a good Q&A, because it is a production. You are now using your one camera screen to be able to communicate with the whole country. If you want to, you can download the meeting organizer matrix that we developed after Checo Bar and doing some high stakes community meetings at the very end. And that is available for you on the SharePoint link. Of course, you'll want to customize it for your team and add more of your checklist to it. So for the virtual interviews, there's some excellent YouTube videos out there on wiping microphones, wearing masks and spacing. Andy Lyon and Chris Hutzel in the lower picture from a few years ago. That's a natural 6-foot separation from the ops briefing side of it. And then up above, Robin Ace, she's actually one of the new information officers and incident commanders from Alaska. And that was a stand-up interview she did this year on our first fire, the Trumpeter fire, back in April, just 30 miles from my house. So again, those interview best practices covered by Michelle Fiddler, covered by a lot of folks, but making sure that you have some sort of figured out audio microphone, test things in advance, use a good backdrop or a natural backdrop. And even if you're teleworking, you can still look nice at home. Put on your Nomex shirt or team shirt, at least look good from the bottom up, and consider a light system to help light your face. Okay, so we'll go into questions. Okay, that covered the VOST piece. Jumping back in, so let's just break it down here. The basic required gear. I don't want anybody thinking that this is a multi-$1,000 getting in game. You can see here the tripod there I picked up in Grants Pass during the Taylor Klondike fire, $40. Earbuds for your phone are in the $20 to $30 range. If you're going to be doing this, you're going to want to have multiple USB charging ports. So I picked some up at IKEA or Costco, very cheap. Your dongle connects your 1/8 inch to your phone, your smartphone. So you'll want to have some sort of dongle to be able to make things work more appropriately. And then there's that Jellyfish $16 smartphone holder. That's my key. I leave home with 2 of those. The first thing you're going to definitely want to upgrade is that tripod. A cheaper tripod, they'll get you through a little bit, but you'll see that they're tippy-toppy. You move them a little bit and they're going to want to move a lot. So you start moving up in the $150 to $200 range with the Manfrotto in the middle, and then up to that nice stable. That's the one I use now after years of using one that I've beat to pieces. This is a good stable one. It's still the same exact $16 holder though. That doesn't change at all. So in terms of getting an idea of what you need, save your money for your tripod, but you can start with the basic one. And this year, you're probably going to need a couple tripods because lights, microphones, you'll see from watching some of the Arizona fires preseason here for the Pacific Northwest, but hot season for Region 3, that microphones are everything. So you might have one tripod with a microphone and another tripod with your smart camera. Stepping it up a little bit, here's some additional gear that I recommend. The DJI Osmo, that's this piece right here. This is a great stabilizer for filming anything from selfie lives to B-roll, so walking past some porta tanks, walking down the fire line, walking through camp. It totally stabilizes your cell phone, gives you a nice landscape or portrait filming. They're about $130, and then you can also set them on a tripod. They do have the mounting screw in the bottom there. You can also upgrade your microphone to be more of a wireless or a fixed. Wireless can range anywhere between $50 and $600. This one, the Saramonics, a fixed one. It plugs right into your phone. Again, you can use your dongle to convert it, and you can monitor with your headset there. And then might gonna want to add that Handycam, and Michelle Fiddler's group uses a Handycam as a best management practice for filming community meetings where you're live. That way, if you lose the live stream, you still have the Handycam. I agree with that. Handycams can range anywhere from a couple $100s to $1,500, and so might as well get one of those in the kit. I've been using that same Sony one for 7 years now. Okay, so you're gonna win one of 5 smartphone holders by playing the game here, and the game is pretty simple. You're gonna take your cell phone, you're gonna make yourself a dummy page. The reason why you're not just going live on your personal page to show me that you can do it is because that's not how you do it in an incident. You don't just turn on your cell phone in an incident, dial into your Facebook account and go live. You toggle over to the incident page where you need incident rights. So from your personal page, create a dummy page. Just say, go to the upper right, create page, choose newscaster, sportscaster, whatever, create your PIO dummy page. And then once it's created, go ahead and toggle to it, go live on it. You can do it on a smartphone or an iPad. Here's an example of an iPad. I know it's a tiny, you can't really see much here, but iPad will work too. And then you just go ahead and you go live. So here's the biggest watch out in Facebook. Make sure you're in landscape, please. Always shoot in landscape mode. Most phones are going to have a feature where you have to sort of shake the phone to the landscape side to let the indicator inside know, the gyroscope, that it wants to go landscape. You'll notice because the text will become parallel to the long side of the phone. And right there it says testing live feed for PW training. That needs to be parallel. If it's not, you're going to shoot in the wrong aspect here. And it's very important to fix that now. Okay, at the end of the feed, this is what your screen will look like. And I want to make very clear that there's 2 things you do before saving the file. Yeah, you click upload in HD and you click save, and then you can hit share. If you don't hit share, it's already shared on your page, you're fine. But you do want to click that upload in HD because that's going to give you a better quality on Facebook, and you are trying to go for the highest quality. And then you're saving it to your phone because that saves you the bandwidth of needing to download it from Facebook to do anything else with it. For us, for inclusivity, diversity, and equity, we like to use YouTube in addition to Facebook. So all the videos we put on Facebook, we also put on YouTube. Okay, so this is wrapping everything up here in the class. We've touched on the 4 points in the wildland fire response plan for the Pacific Northwest. We're going to conduct those virtual and video meetings using available technology. Make that decision in coordination with your public affairs officer. Keep it within the means of what your team can do, and ensure that 2-way communication. 2-way communication might be just answering questions on Facebook Live and frequently letting folks know you have a call-in phone number. 2-way communication can be a lot of different things, so make sure it could be asking for questions the night before and getting emails and then addressing them. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Utilize that virtual operations support team for social media monitoring and transmission of approved messages. Marlita Rediemfeld did a great job explaining what that is to you now. That can be an outside person or an inside person within your team who's designated to do that. Media visits, according to the wildfire response plan, should not occur. Stock video tours and interviews can be provided to the media for virtual access to the incident command post. You can do a stock video tour on PowerPoint. You can do it on Flickr. You can do it as a Facebook story. You can do a lot of different things. And then invest in quality equipment, cameras, tripods, microphones to improve quality for live stream events. That comes straight from our wildfire response plan. I've given you some good low cost ways of getting in. Okay, the next class coming up is going to be June 24th, Closing the Gap, followed by June 25th. It's not if, it's when. That's an incident within an incident one. So next week, you're going to cover some of those gap issues, like how to do more low-tech enhanced, how to reach out in an equity, diversity, inclusion type way with more language translations, 508 captioning compliance, AM/FM radio, a concept of a podcast. And then the next day, we'll have Jim Whittington cover It's Not If, It's When. Much more that incident with an incident. You will have COVID in camp. You will have crews that have COVID-like symptoms. You will have to be dealing with these type of questions from agency administrators, congressionals, and media. And then our simulation on July 1st. Okay, thanks so much. Pictured here is Damon Simmons. This was our third ever Live at 5 a couple years ago with the substation fire. And the picture here is sort of a shout out to everybody who helps everybody make things happen. Bringing it all together, getting everybody on the same page. Remember one of the principles, try, do, and get good at something. We thank you so much, and we hope you have a good day.